Clara stands at the edge of the lot, and the tower rises above her like a monument to everything her father refused to explain. Rust covers the metal in thick, almost deliberate layers. The structure tilts slightly, not dangerous, just tired, old, forgotten. She holds the keys in one hand. With the other, she reaches down and pulls away a panel of loose metal near the base. And there it is. A keypad. Modern. Clean. Recently maintained. She's 43 years old. Her father forbade her from this place for 40 of them. Not once did he let her approach it. Not once did he say why. She's about to find out. Her hand trembles as she reaches toward the buttons. Whatever's waiting inside, whatever he died protecting, is about to change everything. But to understand what she's about to find, we need to go back. 3 months earlier, a lawyer's office downtown, the kind with mahogany desks and windows that don't open. Clara's father had been gone for 5 days. The will was being read. Her siblings were already smiling before the lawyer spoke. David got the house. Colonial, 4 bedrooms, sitting on 6 acres of prime development land. He's a financial advisor. He knew what he was getting. Michelle got the investment portfolio. Bonds, stocks, mutual funds, $500,000 in liquid assets. She'd always been the smart one. The lawyer had to list everything out. Michelle was taking notes. Clara waited. The lawyer cleared his throat and slid a single document across the table. 1 industrial lot. Unzoned. Unusable. With a deteriorating water tower that had been abandoned since the 1980s. That's when David laughed. Not a kind laugh, the kind that fills a quiet room and makes everyone uncomfortable. The rust bucket, he said. Dad really knew how to make a point. Michelle didn't laugh, but she was smiling. That smile meant she'd already done the math. The tax bill on an unusable lot would be brutal. Clara would have to sell it fast, probably for nothing, just to stop bleeding money every year. Clara didn't say anything. She never did. Outside the lawyer's office, the city moved past her in fast motion, people with somewhere to be. She took the bus home to the apartment she shared with her daughter. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, rent due on Friday. She worked retail, 40 hours a week, minimum wage, no benefits. She'd been scraping by like that for years, since the divorce, since her father stopped taking her calls. That industrial lot felt like a final insult from him. A man who'd kept secrets his entire life. A man who kept distance like it was a virtue. A man who told her once, when she was 12, to stay away from the tower. Never told her why, just said it. Stay away. She inherited it anyway, not because she wanted it, because it was what was left for her. But something about the whole thing felt wrong.
Why would a father work so hard to keep his daughter out of something so worthless? Why forbid her from a piece of trash? Why, on his deathbed, did he leave it to her in the will at all? Those questions sat in her chest like stones. The first time Clara actually visited the property after the funeral, she knew something was off. The lot sat at the edge of an industrial park, surrounded by chain-link fencing that had rusted through in places. The tower rose behind it like a monument to neglect. Grass grew wild between concrete cracks. Everything looked exactly like what everyone said it was. Worthless. But Clara was looking closer. The gate lock was new, shiny, fresh paint, barely weathered. Someone had replaced it recently, within the last few months, maybe less. She ran her fingers over it. Still cold, still intact. The dirt beyond the gate told another story. Tire tracks, recent ones. Someone had been driving in and out of this lot, regularly. Someone who didn't want to be noticed.
She found the fence cut in a corner, hidden by overgrown weeds, just enough space to slip through without forcing the gate. Inside, the tower's exterior was exactly as she'd expected, rust and decay. But when she got closer, really looked, the seams didn't match the corrosion. The panels were sealed, not weathered, sealed, climate-controlled, maintained. Her father was a welder, a fabricator, a man who worked with his hands and never,
ever talked about his work. He'd come home with metal shavings in his hair, oil under his fingernails, and a look on his face that said, "Don't ask." She went back to his house, her childhood home, which David would be selling in the fall. She had maybe a week to grab anything she wanted. She didn't want much. In his desk, in a drawer she'd never opened, she found a key. Just one, old brass. And written on the tag in her father's careful handwriting was a single date, 1984. Underneath it, a note, 3 lines, his handwriting again. Not until she's ready.
Not until she understands. Then she'll know why I kept her safe. Her hands went cold. She called her mother. They hadn't talked in months, not since the funeral arrangements. Her mother picked up after 2 rings like she'd been waiting. Clara asked about the tower. Her mother's breath caught. Actually caught. Clara could hear it. "Your father built something in there," her mother said quietly. "For you. But he was afraid you'd find it too soon, before you could understand." "Understand what?" Her mother didn't answer. She just said, "Open it when you're ready. But Clara, be ready." That night, Clara found the photographs. In a box in his garage, under old blueprints and sketches. Her father is a young man, maybe 30, standing over a drafting table. Plans spread everywhere. Detailed sketches of interior spaces, metal framing, a design, a vision. And one photograph that stopped her breathing. Her father inside the tower, decades ago, smiling. Not his normal smile, the polite one he used for family gatherings. This was different. This was joy. This was a man looking at something he'd created and knowing it meant something. The tower wasn't abandoned. It was never abandoned. It was a project, a secret project, and it had been waiting for her all along. That was when Clara understood. Her father didn't forbid her from the tower because he hated her. He forbade her because he was building something he couldn't let her find too soon, something that required patience, something that required her to be ready. She held the brass key in her palm. One date, 1984. The year he'd started, the year before she was born. 2 weeks later, Clara stood in front of the tower with the brass key heavy in her pocket. The sun was dropping low. She was alone. She needed to be alone. Her fingers found the loose metal panel where she'd spotted it before. It came away easier this time, like it wanted to be found. The keypad was exactly what she'd remembered. Modern, black, with a small red light blinking. Battery-powered. Maintained. Waiting. She pulled the key out and looked at the date again. 1984. The year he'd started building. The year before she was born. Her hands were shaking as she reached toward the keypad. Not from cold. From knowing that whatever she was about to find would change something inside her that she couldn't change back. She entered the numbers slowly. 1, 9, 8, 4. The keypad beeped. The light turned green. The door unlocked with a sound like breath being released, a pneumatic hiss that echoed in the tower's metal bones. Clara pushed. The door swung inward, cool air rolled out, and with it came a smell she didn't expect. Not rust, not rot, not the stench of abandonment. This was clean. This was metal and oil and something else. Wood. Careful storage. She found the light switch just inside. Her palm was damp against it. The fluorescent panels flickered on, and what she saw stopped her breathing. The interior walls were lined with steel framing, meticulously installed. The space was climate-controlled. She could see the vents, the wiring, everything running clean and organized. A staircase spiraled upward into the tower's core, wrapping around and around like a spine. And the walls. The walls were covered in photographs. Her childhood, every moment of it. Her as a baby in her father's arms, Her at 5, gap-toothed and laughing. Her at 10, sullen and confused. Her at 15, angry. Her at 20, hopeful. Her at 25, broken. Her at 30, trying to hold it together. Dates were written underneath each photograph in careful handwriting. Names. Clara's first day of school. Clara's 8th birthday. Clara at the lake. Clara learned to read. Her entire life documented, witnessed, loved. Her father's face appeared in some of them, always at the edges, always watching.
Her mother's face appeared in others. And between the photographs, written across the walls in that same careful handwriting, were words. Names of songs, dates, small observations, things he'd noticed, things he'd remembered. This wasn't abandoned. This was maintained. This was loved. Clara's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the bottom step of the spiral staircase, her hand pressed against her chest like she could hold herself together. Her father didn't forbid her from this place because he hated her. He forbid her because he was building a sanctuary, because he was building a temple to the daughter he didn't know how to talk to. Because every year she couldn't come here, he added another wall, another shelf, another photograph, another dream for a place where she could be safe. And then she understood something else. The photographs on these walls weren't old. They weren't faded and dusty. They were clean, recent. The battery in the keypad was fresh. The air felt circulated. Someone had been maintaining this space. Recently. After her father died. Who? That question burned, but Clara pushed it aside. There was a staircase in front of her, and something waiting above. Clara climbed. The first level opened like a whisper. A library. Shelves of journals, leather-bound, lined up in perfect rows. And on the spine of each one, a year. 1984, 1985, 1986. All the way to this year. All the way to the end. She pulled the journal marked 1984 and opened it to the first page. His handwriting filled the margins. Not neat, real, lived in. The first entry read, "I'm building this for Clara, so she'll have a place where she belongs, where she can be safe, where the world can't touch her." She read for 20 minutes, standing in that library, tears moving down her face without her permission. Pages and pages of his thoughts about her, his fears that he wasn't good enough, wasn't present enough, wasn't enough. His dreams for what she could become, his regrets, his hopes, His love, written in ink because he couldn't say it out loud. She climbed higher. The second level stopped her heart. A workshop. The space opened wide and bright, tools hanging from pegboards, blueprints pinned to walls, metal scraps organized by size and type. This was her father's real work, the art he never showed anyone. Welded sculptures filled the shelves, impossible geometry, twisted metal that caught the light and threw it back in ways that shouldn't have worked, but did. Beautiful, strange things, things made with hands and intention, things that hurt to look at because they were so honest. A note sat on the workbench. "These are for you to finish, if you want to." The third level was a living space. A bedroom with a bed made with fresh linens, a kitchenette, a bathroom with running water and towels folded on a rack. Like a place someone lived, or a place someone hoped she would. On the nightstand sat a leather journal with her name on it. Clara, written in gold leaf. She opened it to the first page. The date? The day she was born. The words, "Dear Clara, I'm building you a tower, a place where the world can't touch you, a place where you can think, where you can dream, where you can be yourself." The fourth level was the crown, the circular room at the top of the tower, with windows cut into the walls, overlooking the entire industrial district and the city beyond it. A telescope pointed toward the stars, and in the center of the room, an old-fashioned vault. Steel, heavy,
with a combination lock built right into the door. Next to it, a note in her father's hand. "The combination is in my last journal. You'll know it when you read it." Clara understood now. Her father didn't ban her from this tower to hurt her. He banned her because he was afraid she'd find it before he could explain. Before she could understand that it was built from love, not rejection. This tower was everything he couldn't say. His protection, his belief in her.
His vision of a place where she could escape. But the vault changed everything. There was something inside that he'd kept locked away, even from this sanctuary. Clara found his final journal on the nightstand next to the leather-bound one with her name. This one wasn't labeled with a year, it was just heavy. Dark leather, worn at the corners, with pages that looked like they'd been read and reread. The date on the first entry was the month before he died. She sat on the bed and opened it. "Clara, if you're reading this, I'm gone." The words hit her in the chest. She almost closed it, almost didn't let herself hear what came next. "I've been waiting for the right time to tell you about the tower. The right time never came, so I'm telling you now in the only way I know how." He explained everything. The tower wasn't just a building, it was his life's work. His apology for being a distant father. His attempt to build something that would outlast him, something that would say all the things he couldn't say out loud. He wrote about her childhood, moments she'd forgotten, moments he'd witnessed from the edges of her life. The day she came home crying because kids at school called her poor. The night she stayed up reading under a blanket with a flashlight, thinking no one knew. The time she helped an old woman carry groceries at the supermarket where she worked and didn't expect anything in return. He'd seen her. All those years, even when she thought he was ignoring her, he was watching. He was loving her the only way he knew how. Then, about her mother. "I built this tower because I wanted to give your mother a place to rest. And I wanted to give you a place to think, away from the noise. Away from everything that tells you that you're not enough. Because you are." At the bottom of the page, he'd written the combination to the vault. Not a random set of numbers. Her birthday. Month, day, year. He'd known she'd figure that out. Clara's hands were shaking as she stood and walked toward the vault. She didn't let herself think, didn't let herself feel. Just moved, just breathed, just entered the numbers slowly. The vault clicked open. Inside, documents lay stacked on a shelf. A deed, but not just a deed to the lot. This deed included mineral rights, underground water reserves, underground copper deposits. All of it documented, all of it worth millions. Investment certificates, dozens of them, accumulated over decades. Every penny her father had saved, all of it in her name. Photographs. Her father as a young man, maybe 25, with a woman she'd never seen. They were holding hands. Her father was smiling that same smile, the real one, the one that said joy. The back of the photograph had a name written in pencil. Eleanor, dated 1978. A letter sat underneath. "This is Eleanor, my first love. She died before you were born. She was kind and brave, and the world forgot her. No one remembered. She was unseen. I couldn't give her the tower, but I could give it to you, so you'd never feel like she felt, so you'd never be forgotten." At the bottom of the vault, a will. Not the one the lawyer had read, another one. Dated after the first, handwritten. Dated just weeks before he died. It read, "I leave everything in the tower, the property, the structure, the journals, the vault, and all its contents, solely to my daughter, Clara. Not as an obligation, as an inheritance of my real self. This is my real legacy. Not money, not property. You." And then Clara understood something that made her sit down hard on the floor. The official will, the one that gave her the worthless lot, had been a test. Her father needed to know that she'd claim it anyway, that she'd open the door even when everyone told her it was trash,
that she wouldn't abandon something just because the world told her it was worthless. He needed to know that she was worth the wait. When Clara emerged from the tower, the sun was almost gone. The sky had turned that color, not quite purple, not quite black, that happens just before night swallows everything. She had photographs in her hands, documents in a folder, her entire understanding of her father rewritten in her chest like a second heartbeat. She called David first. He answered on the third ring, already annoyed. "I found the vault," she said. Her voice didn't shake. "The mineral rights alone are worth more than your house and Michelle's portfolio combined." The line went quiet. That quiet meant David was doing the math. That quiet meant he understood. Michelle called her back within an hour, not to congratulate, to ask questions, to wonder if the deed was real, to calculate what that meant for the estate. Their lawyer sent a letter 3 days later, a claim on the property, a suggestion that the tower didn't belong to her. Clara didn't fight them. She didn't need to. She hired a lawyer, a real one, not the family lawyer who'd read the fake will. Within 3 weeks, the inheritance was legally secured. The tower, the property, the mineral rights, the certificates, all of it hers. She used some of the money to restore the tower. Not the outside, she kept it rusted, kept it hidden, but the inside. She finished her father's sculptures. She added her own art to the walls. She reinforced the climate control. She made it beautiful in the way he'd started to. And then she did something that surprised even herself. She opened it. Not to the public, not to the world, but to people who needed it. A woman's shelter. A studio for artists with nowhere else to go. A sanctuary for the forgotten. She took her father's secret and transformed it into purpose. On the 1-year anniversary of opening the tower to others, Clara stood in the circular room at the top, looking out over the city. The light was moving across rooftops. The telescope caught the early stars. She thought about her father, his fear, his love, his inability to say the things that mattered. She thought about the 40-year ban, and now she understood it completely. He wasn't keeping her out. He was keeping something safe, something sacred, something built from his whole heart. He was saying, "I see you, and I'm building you a place where the world has to see you too." Clara locks the tower behind her, not out of fear, out of respect. Her father spent 40 years building a sanctuary she didn't know she needed. Now she spends her life making sure others find theirs. The water tower still stands, rusted on the outside, transformed within. Sometimes the most valuable things are the ones we're told to avoid. Subscribe to see what happens when a family's deepest secret finally comes home.